I'm Shelby Bathis,
And I'm Michaela Chapman.
and this is our Excel analysis for business statistics. The S&P Case-Shiller Index is a composite of single-family home price indices. The S&P National Index is normalized to have a base value of 100 in January of 2000. The index values change based upon percentage increases and decreases in housing prices rather than the actual home price itself. For example, if the index is at 125, that means home prices at that point in time have increased 25% since January of 2000.
The three cities we'll be looking at are Portland, San Diego, and Boston. Each city has a different home price average. Portland is 150.80, which means that the prices have increased on average 50% since January of 2000. San Diego's average is 184.03, meaning home prices have increased 84% since 2000, and Boston is 160.15, which means that it has increased 60% since 2000.
By looking at the graphs for the price indexes, they all start at 100 because the index is normalized in January of 2000. By looking at the graph for Boston, we see that the prices peaked in October of 2005 at 182. The prices lowered and reached bottom from 2009 to early 2012 during the housing financial crisis and seem to be on an upward trend and is currently recovering. By examining the Portland and San Diego home price index graphs, we see that they're very similar to Boston, and Portland peaked in 2008 and decreased during the housing market crash and has been recovering since. And similarly, San Diego peaked in 2006, took a hit during the crash as well, and home prices for all three cities have been increasing and recovering since 2012.
So now we're going to look at the standard deviations. It measures how diverse the prices are from the average home price in that city. So Portland prices vary about 31% from the average home price, San Diego's vary about 42%, and Boston's vary about 22% from the average home price.
The histogram for Portland shows the frequency of the price index, and it shows how various groups of single-family home price indices are measured over time, and the class intervals used for the histogram were bins of 20. The histogram for Portland home prices show that from 2000 to 2017, the most frequent home price ranged from 100 to 120 on the S&P index. The second most frequent range was from 140 to 160 on the index, and the indices are relatively uniform in frequency for the range 100 to 180. There has been a big drop from 180 to 200 on the price index. The data in this case appears to be right skewed, meaning that the data is more frequent on the lower index intervals and less frequent on the higher intervals. For Portland, this is because home prices are recovering and rising beyond what we've seen before. Prices have been rising steadily recently, and therefore it's not very common to have these high indices compared to the whole data set.
So now we're going to look at the correlations. The correlation coefficient shows how strongly two variables are related to each other, where one is a perfect positive correlation. Out of each pair of cities, San Diego and Boston have the strongest correlation compared to the other two. The coefficient of correlation measures the relative strength between two numerical variables. Some correlations may be low because they don't have a strong relationship between each other. From a business perspective, correlation is another method of sales forecasting. For example, in the housing market, it might be useful to know that there is a predictable relationship between home prices and factors such as advertising, weather, consumer income, etc. If the correlation is high, then these factors are a strong predictor, and if the correlation is low, then the factors are a weak predictor of prices. And that concludes our presentation.